I was going through and I'm like, I should start the episode with Sweet Fantasy by Mariah Carey. And she would sue me to death.
Hola, Tomigo.
Hey, what's going on? it's
Not
not
much.
it's not even Taco Tuesday.
No, I could go for a taco right now, though. Um, Welcome,
What
Tom,
is
and loyal listeners to our next episode of Two Guys Talking Toys and Tacos.
two guys talking tacos?
I don't
Uh,
understand fish tacos. Are they good? Just doesn't seem
I
right.
I have no clue. I don't think I want to try that.
No.
I just want whatever mystery meat is in Taco Bell.
Do you remember Choco Tacos? You
They're,
could get them on the ice cream trucks.
they're coming back. Hey, listen, I had to admit I once worked at a Taco Bell and we took all of them.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
why they
sure.
were gone till now. We took them all.
My younger brother used to eat them all the time.
That's what you get when you pay your employees like $5 an hour.
Well, they could have. He didn't even work there. I mean, he could have been paid in Choco Tacos, and he would have taken the job.
Worth it. Totally worth it.
He'll be 5 Choco Tacos an hour. He would have been on it.
It's a good deal. So how you been and have you gotten anything new?
I have been gimpy because I've got a
Ah,
hitch in my giddy up, and I hurt my
what
knee.
did you get for throwing that tiger knee so often?
That's right.
It's okay. You should see the other guy.
Right. Yeah.
He is, he
He's
is
got a
out. You
he's
stood
got a
over
he's got a knee-shaped indent in his face.
you stood over him, laughed, and I ran in and said, "You lose."
I did get something new. One of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons characters when I was a kid was Elkhorn, the dwarf, and I finally picked up the NECA
Oh, that's
Elkhorn.
awesome.
Yeah, he's fantastic. It's basically the same buck and legs from Zarak, the half orc, but
Mhm.
the textured pants get me. Like they're so well
Pretty well
done.
done. Yeah.
Um,
How tall is he? Or
he's about
is he not?
this tall. No, he's shorter than the others.
Mhm.
Um, I have Zarak here. Um, he's the same size as Zarak. He's about 6 inches. Oh wait, I have Strongheart. I keep my D&D guys close.
Oh, that's a good visual. Okay, so the all right, so he's absolutely dwarf size when you put him next to the rest of the figures in the line.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited about this line. I loved those
Mhm.
characters when I was a kid, and to see them render. I mean, the LJN figures were fantastic.
Yeah.
I have Elkhorn, the original.
Mhm.
He's just not convenient. I wish I should have brought him in for comparison, but he's only like this big. Um, I loved all these characters, and I can't wait to see because they had so many that were different sizes. Like they had the female characters, and
Yeah.
and the elf was short
Mhm.
and skinny, unlike Elkhorn, who was very broad shouldered.
Yeah.
Um, and North Lord and the Ogre King and the Titan were taller figures, so they were almost like 6 inches compared to the regular like 4.5, 5 inch line. So I'm really excited to see what they do when they start getting now that they've had Elkhorn and Zarak. Now I want
Yeah.
to see what they do with the bigger guys like North Lord and Ogre King.
I would love to see them tackle some of the monsters.
I
Uh
know we were just
I
talking about that in Target the other day. Hook
yeah,
horror would be
I
fantastic.
I didn't realize how many of those I actually wound up getting as a kid. They weren't that expensive if I remember correctly.
No, especially those rubbery, like you were talking
Yeah.
about the rubbery ones that were
Yeah.
like bendy, and some of them weren't articulated at all. There was an ogre that was kind of a pukey yellow orange color with
Yeah.
green hair, and he wasn't articulate at all. But we still used him with the figures. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was a great blunt object.
Hmm. He was heavy too. That was like a solid chunk of rubber. It's like the LJN wrestlers.
Yes, that's true.
They
And
were very, very similar.
I would have had a ridiculous crossover with Dusty Rhodes versus the Hook Monster.
Yes, and that would be fantastic because that belt would have fit around his waist. Hook monsters. Did you get anything new, or is it a surprise? Is it still
Uh,
packaged?
it's a little bit of both. I actually had a pretty good week. Um, I this is probably the most stuff that I've gotten for myself in a long time. So, all right. So for starters, uh, I big thanks to you for getting me the Imperial Stegosaurus that's behind me, because he's one of the few that I actually never had as a kid. I remember seeing him and then just for whatever reason not owning him. So that was really cool. So thank you for getting that for me. Also behind me is on the lineup is Stitch from the Storytellers line.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are cool little figures. I love them.
Yeah, people go to your Targets, and the clearance stuff is starting to happen again. So not the Python Patrol stuff yet,
I know
but it
it's
will.
stacked up.
Yeah, clearance chicken is happening right now. But
They could build a Python trouble bubble fort with all the
yeah,
ones on the shelf.
and when they drop them down to $20, I may just buy enough to build a fort because I want
Yep.
those. Those color schemes are silly and I love them. But yeah, but I got Stitch from the Storytellers line. He's kind of the original Plunderling, so he's hanging out in the back there with him. Also, finally, for like the first time in months, actually used my GameStop membership to get $5 off something and just kind of barely cover the sales tax. So I picked up AXN's Razar. So that was kind of neat.
Nice.
What else did I pick up? Oh, and again, everyone kind of Big Daddy Target is actually kind of coming
Big
through
Daddy Target
this week. He's doing a face turn. Check your targets because I found Studio Series Snarl from Transformers.
Nice. That's some pretty good box art. I like that.
So he is next to Slug slash Slag. He was my second favorite Dinobot. I loved him.
That box art is sort of reminiscent of like old school dinosaur toy art. It's so well done.
It's real good. I'm looking forward to popping him out of here and messing around with him. He's so good looking. Just can't wait. And this brings us down to 4 out of 5. So we're just waiting on Swoop, which will probably come out next year, I think. Right. But this is awesome. And I do in fact have a package that have not opened yet.
I like this tradition.
I've gotten a few, so I legitimately don't know what's in this one. I can't even hazard a guess. This is
there's a ninja hiding in there.
Yeah, so if I get wiped out before we get to talk about today's topic, this is why you should be careful ordering things off of eBay. This is very much an eBay
you might get sent an assassin. All right, what is it?
I know what this is. This is
I've been awfully well stuffed.
It really is. That guy's getting some good feedback. Good job, man. This is Kragnar
nice.
From Mythic Legion. Or I'm sorry, from Cosmic Legions. I apologize.
Cosmic Legions.
I've been eyeballing this guy since the wave. When it was initially announced, budget did not allow for me to go in on this wave. Holy cow, he is massive.
He's got a very stern look. He looks like a Men in Black guy.
And he's got they're in the bag, but he's got you can see the indentations for the additional arms. So he has 4 arms that you can toss in there. But you know what I want to do? Because the only thing I don't like about him is his face. So imagine
if I had a dime every time I heard that from someone.
Yeah, you're like, everything else is fine, but your face is killing me. So
hey, you just called him a butterface.
Yeah, he really is. So I'm gonna fix this and get myself a 3D printed King Ghidorah head, because that would look awesome on this.
Nice.
I actually have the Blue Dragon, Agaricore. All of these names are hilarious to me because it's just someone threw a bunch of Scrabble dice out, and they're like, "That's our name," which is fine. do what you want. These figures look fantastic, so I'm looking forward to having a 4-armed King Ghidorah. Oh, what if you took the arms, removed the hands, and added a head? So you could have the additional 2 arms behind him.
Fever dream with more Ghidorah heads.
Yeah, instead of a hand, you have the Ghidorah head, so the main head is in the middle, and you have the 2 other heads on the side of him. Oh, that's my plan. That is my plan. I'm gonna do a digibash of this to mock it up and see how it may possibly. It may wind up looking silly and stupid, but I like this idea for now. This is great.
You just witnessed inspiration happening.
These are the weird things that I do for fun with my spare time, as opposed to, I don't know, going to the opera. I'd much rather digibash King Ghidorah's head onto Kragnar, who sounds like a character from Strong Bad, if you remember that
Ragnar.
show.
Yes.
He's he was a man.
What was it? Oh,
He
I'm
was
thinking
a
of the
dragon man.
I'm thinking of the Lochnar from
The Lochnar.
Heavy Metal.
Holy cow! I forgot about that.
I
Very,
was like,
very similar,
Ragnar. Why does that sound familiar? But
similar vein. Yeah, this guy's
then
great.
I just heard John Candy's voice saying, "Hey, that's my Lochnar."
I am looking forward to all the flavors and colors of this guy because they've already done that really cool blue dragon. Aragakor, Aragot. All the Mythic Legions people are very upset right now.
Agakorgagon.
Yes, he's a very cool looking blue dragon man, and I want him. And I also have the Whiplash homage that they did, the really cool green looking version of that dragon. I have him
Right.
pre-ordered on Big Bad.
You know, it's funny. I never hear anybody referring to the Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions by name. They're always by description. It's always
yeah,
like it's the the Many Faces homage, or the
yeah,
Stinkor homage, or the Blue Dragon dude, or the one with the green skull, or the flaming green skull, or the
yeah. I think if you want like some real intense, very specific name specific drops happening, you have to go to the Mythic Legions Cabal on Facebook. They're pretty intense. They're pretty into it in a good way. They seem like good people, but I have not joined because I'm, I just want the four-armed dragon man. That's
right,
the best I can do. So with I want to actually kind of reverse a little bit to the conversation we were having before with your Dungeons and Dragons figures, because I would like to talk about fantasy toys. Fantasy
nice.
action figures. Get your mind out of the gutter, people. We're talking about swords and sorcery style action figures this week.
I have like some laying around. Like the ones we from a couple of shows ago. Like I still have my Zelda guys laying around.
Yes, you know what? That's actually a good starting point. Because that ties in video games and the kind of swords and swords from. I'm not exactly sure when swords and sorcery wound up becoming as sought after as, say, like, cowboys and cops and robbers and mechanical sci-fi. I'm not exactly sure where they slot in.
I remember when I was a kid being really excited when the fantasy movies would come on. That's back in the day when we only had one HBO.
Yeah.
Right. And but they were always like off, like they were never high budget films. Like we would sit and watch and love them. Like the Conan movies, right, weren't high budget. You had Beastmaster, like would come on. Like I remember very distinctly when I was a kid, like, oh, I don't know what this is, but it looks like that time period. So I want to get into this. And that was in the 80s. So you had Conan, Beastmaster, Krull was sort of sci-fi fantasy, but and then you had Red Sonja, and then there was a double feature we went to see in the drive-in was Hercules with Lou Ferrigno, I believe.
Oh, Hercules movies.
And Yor. It was the two movies. Hercules and Yor was a double feature at the drive-in. And but we'd be really excited whenever we came across one of those fantasy movies, and none of them were great. They were very low budget, and but that's kind of what made them cool. And then they sort of caught that feeling again in the 90s with the Xena and the Hercules show. They kind of brought that back into the forefront again. And those had even higher budgets than the full length movies did.
See, I wanted to talk about this mostly because I actually had practically no interest in them. So I was really curious to see.
Really? Because you're like a sword guy. That's your thing.
My interest in them veers towards like this kind of muddied middle ground where it's always kind of like sword and sorcery versus something else encroaching. Like part of the appeal of She-Ra to me. Like I loved He-Man and Master of the Universe, but I also really, really enjoyed She-Ra because it was, this world of magic and wonder, and then you have the Horde, and there's technology, and there's pollution for the most part. And
that's what turned me on to Thundar the Barbarian. Was my favorite when I was a kid because of that.
Thundar, which is sorely lacking in action figures. There's just the one set, and we keep seeing the one set at time.
I know, and I go drool over it.
Yep, they're so expensive, and I can't. I would love for.
I keep saying the third quarter's over at the end of March. If I get a third quarter bonus, I want to get those, but I need them to stay there for another month.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if anyone has been seeking out the Hanna-Barbera licenses, or if they're just tough to negotiate with, because we had that resurgence in the early 2000s, and we got all those really cool sets of like Herculoids and
Yep.
and Thundar and
And they were
two other
limited
ones.
runs. They were limited
Yeah,
runs.
and I remember seeing them in like specialty shops, and then they
Yeah.
were just gone. And now they go for like thousands of dollars if you want to get a hold of them and have all their
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah.
But
But I remember our first fantasy toys were probably the D&D guys, probably the
yeah,
LJ and Dungeons and Dragons guys.
I
Well,
remember,
I mean, yeah, and then He-Man, of course, but everybody had
yeah,
He-Man. I mean,
yeah. I remember getting like it's kind of funny because that when we were in Target, we were discussing them. I started to realize I actually had more of those than I thought I did.
mhm,
Because again, they probably weren't that expensive. They were and they were just like fun, silly toys. And I like my parents knew I liked monsters and dinosaurs and whatever. So I actually
yeah.
never had any of the human characters. I only had like the Grell, that weird brain looking creature that had the tentacles.
Right. I never liked
And
that guy. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this guy?
he's so weird. I remember even
Didn't he
as
have a
a
little beak, like a little octopus beak?
yeah, he was like an inverted octopus. And I remember
Oh, that's bothersome to think about, but you're
so,
right.
yeah, the beak's on the outside, along with his brain. I mean, I was like, this is
Had
not
to be
the
a smart dude, though. That was a huge brain. It was like 2.5, 3 inches across.
yeah, maybe not the best evolutionary design, since it was just exposed.
Yeah.
It's just an exposed bunch of
Just
brain.
walk up and just go, boink,
He-
right on his medulla oblongata. Whoop.
I remember using him like Gamera, right? When like he needed to travel, I would splay his
Oh, yeah.
tentacles out and he would just spin. And
Right.
he had these weird, gross little like extensions underneath him. Like if you flipped him over, he had these little green like mini tentacles that were in an
Yeah.
exact
Yeah.
circle. So our like his main attack for me was the brain drain. So I'd put him on top of someone else's
Oh,
head.
so that went
And he
over
would,
their head.
yeah,
That's funny.
and he would latch on with his tentacles and suck up all their knowledge. I have no clue if he does this in Dungeons and
Right.
Dragons,
Right.
but that's how I use him. Um,
We didn't do it as kids, but what I would do with him now,
mhm,
if I had him as a toy and I was playing, is that because his brain is so exposed that he couldn't
mhm.
be any good in battle, that he was controoling the other monsters with
So that
his
would make
giant
sense
telepathic brain. Yeah.
to have him like way up on a hill and moving them
Yeah.
around like chess pieces. See, these are the things that I would love to see NECA jump back into. There was an orange creature that he had like a kind of a stumpy bottom portion, and he had these tentacle arms that had kind of squid
Right.
endings,
Yeah.
and then he had like one weird strip of flesh that extended from the
And it
top.
had an eye.
It had two eyes on it, so I always had it bent because I thought that the eyes needed to look like ours. So he was always tilting his head to the side to see what was going on.
Yeah. He had some weirdo creatures.
Yeah, really imaginative.
And
Um,
the bullywugs, those frog warriors that were solid vinyl,
oh,
like the ogre. The
I actually never
bullywugs
had
were
those.
awesome. Oh, they were fantastic. And my younger brother made great characters with them,
Uh,
as he did with everything. But he had the bullywugs, and they were comic relief in any situation we had.
oh, so, uh, fun fact, since we're on Dungeons and Dragons, fun fact, when we did our dinosaurs episode, I was looking up trying to find more information on that bag of dinosaurs that everybody had, that had the one
Right.
pterodactyl with
The
the head
palm
turned.
tree
And
and the, yeah.
yeah, but I remembered there being a second set of creatures that I had, and they were all looked weird. They weren't like dinosaurs per se, but they were just weird critters, like a weird looking bug monster, and a not quite dinosaur guy, but he had his arms were extended, and he had like a scorpion tail, and he had
Right.
weird kind of like catfish whiskers
Sure
coming
you
off the
weren't looking
side.
at the William Floyd High School yearbook?
That came later.
Oh, okay.
That was, those were dark times. I needed Dungeons and Dragons to get me out of that.
Yep.
Uh, but after doing some research and lots and lots of Google lensing, found out that set is based on concept art for Dungeons and Dragon monsters. So those
No
little
kidding.
creatures, yeah,
That's awesome.
I have to look it up and put it in the show notes because I don't remember the name of the guy that created them. But it's concept art for Dungeons and Dragons, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know if there are official toys made of those creatures, but all of those little, like, just badly made with all the plastic flash still attached, all of
Yep.
those were based on
Yeah.
those monsters, and it's really cool.
I have a
I
bag of
never
little
knew that.
dinosaurs that I keep trying to give you, but I forget. It's just a sealed bag of dinosaurs, and I have a sealed bag of robots too,
Oh!
like little robots of the same ilk. You could have your own like Pacific Rim thing going on. Yeah, so when we had all those cool D&D guys, then we had, when we had He-Man, we used
Mhm.
the Remco, Conan, and Demos and Warlord
Yeah.
figures with them, and they were
Mhm.
cool. But D&D triggered a whole during that time period. Um, we found Dragon Riders of the Styx, which were
Mhm.
fantastic. They had the Black Knight and the Barbarian and Dragon Man
Yeah.
and a variety of wizards. It was a fantastic line. Not huge, but they had cool ride on dragons and whatnot that you would
Yeah.
pull back and let go. Um, and then Arco did the Other World, which were
Mhm.
Gumby kind of guys. My brother
Okay.
really got into them, and they had these little purple, I don't know, troglodyte looking things. And they were cool, but they were bendy. So, after a while that wire would break and
Yeah, that would
have the
snap.
they were just, on the top rope all the time celebrating. But you would love them because they had glow in the dark weapons.
Oh, duh,
All of the
that's
swords glow in the dark.
I'm powerless against it. I'm
We discussed them before, and you said you were going to look them up. You weren't really familiar with them. You should look them up. The Other World, Arco.
Oh, that's right. Now that you mention them, I do remember looking them up for do when we did the gimmicks,
Right?
the
Yeah.
gimmicks episodes. I did find some for
Yeah,
that.
the monsters were really cool. They had one that you would love, looked like a turtle.
Uh-huh.
It was about this big, and it looked very Gamera like in shell. It
Mhm.
was green and it had this mean face, but it
Mhm.
had two like tusks almost that came out from under the shell and just straight,
Oh,
like
that's
like
neat.
it passed his head. And then you could pull it back and let it go, and he would ram with those two giant tusks, whatever you wanted him to. It was
Oh,
cool.
that's really neat. I looked this up. I'm
Yeah.
I can't resist. I can't resist glow in the dark stuff. I'm actually this close to purchasing on a slight tangent. I'm this close to purchasing. Coffin Comics put up their Lady Death action figures, and they're clearancing some of them out. They're lowering the price on some of them, and one of them is a glow in the dark Lady Death, which I did not know existed, and now that I do, she has to hang out with Scareglow.
Right.
It's required.
That's a cute couple.
They would cause lots of
Definitely
hilarious mayhem together.
Scarecrow. I mean, Scareglow obviously works out. He goes to the gym, but he's got a little thing going on here.
He's another Butterface. He's very
He's
much.
definitely punching above his weight class with Lady Death. So,
Let's look at
what
well,
fantasy
you just
figures
had
did you have when you were young, aside from those D&D guys and He-Man? Did you
mhm,
have any other lines, or I'm sure you
not
had other figures that you creatively turned into fantasy figures?
um not really. Like
Hmm.
looking back on it, I again like I wasn't really into um just straight up swords and knives. Like I liked magic, so it was always kind of like a weird. I always questioned where certain things that I liked lay. Like is Thundercats considered fantasy? Because again,
Right,
it's
because we
sword.
seem to
It's
anything with a sword, we tend to throw that direction. But
yeah. So it's like swords and it's swords and special abilities versus yeah,
right,
Mumra. And then in the remake, Mumra wound up being much more of a technological vampire mummy creature, and then it
right,
became the the same thing that attracted me to She-Ra versus the Evil Horde. It was magic versus technology.
right.
Again, same thing with Thundar. I was really into it because of that. You had these,
Oh man, I
uh,
love Thunder.
yeah, I couldn't tell you the plot of any episode, but I absolutely remember watching it constantly
I
and
love the
wanting
opening
toys of them.
sequence when it shows the comet passing between the
Yes.
moon and the Earth, and the moon splitting in half, and
Like
oh,
what
it's just so great.
what year wasn't it, like 1995 or something? It was the far future of 1995.
Yeah, it's
Oh, so
fantastic.
so here's a question. Smurfs, are they fantasy characters?
Uh
Because they seem to take place in a medieval setting.
yeah, it was definitely medieval season. You had
There's
the wizards, you had
yeah, there's
Johann was a squire, and
a
or
little bit of
yeah,
swordplay happening.
he was trying to be a knight, and
Gargamel was, for all intents and purposes, sort of a wizard.
Right. He
Maybe
called
not a very
himself
good
a
one,
wizard.
but yeah.
No, and you had the giant, you had Big Mouth.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
definitely
yeah, I
call that.
forgot about him.
Yeah, I would definitely call that fantasy.
Now, I was a big fan of Legend of Zelda, so
Mhm.
it's good that you have you have a link nearby. The I only made it up to
There he
3
is.
before I kind of fell off the video game line, but
Yeah.
I remember loving I remember wanting action figures of him, so they kind of came out too late
Right.
for
Yeah,
me.
they came
But
out too late. You know, it's the same thing with the like they released Lord of the Rings figures when I was a kid based on
mhm,
those animated movies, and that
yeah,
Hobbit animated movie was fantastic. And
mhm,
then the other two were a little weird, like their
yeah.
animation was like they animated over real life people at some point when the
Oh
orcs
yeah,
were attacking, and it
they
was
had that
very,
realistic rotoscoping going on.
yeah, it was kind of creepy. But they released some figures, and I remember getting them at Modell's,
Uh-huh.
and those animated Lord of the Ring figures were fantastic. And
Mhm.
then, then of course Peter Jackson blew it up with the Lord of the Ring movies, and that figure line is
What did yeah,
extensive.
did you pick up any of the newer Lord of the Rings toys?
No, I have a couple of Golem just because I
Mhm.
love him so much, but
I was
other
debating
than that, I
getting
it was one of those things where I was like, if I go down this rabbit hole, I'm going to be. I mean, I knew it was going to be years long,
mhm,
so
yeah.
um but I enjoyed the books, I enjoyed the movies, I enjoyed the animated movies, but no, I didn't jump on that. But there are some of them are a little weird, like their early put outs were not great in my
No.
opinion, but they certainly picked it up as you know the
It
30 hours of movie got released.
they I remember them catching my eye in Toys R Us. Well, partially because they were everywhere, but I remember them
Yeah.
catching my eye in Toys R Us when they would do those kind of specialty packs. Like there's the invisible set that was
Yep.
clear. And I remember having it in my hand and not knowing where I would put them, or like where would they go in the collection. So I wound up not getting them. I was tempted to get oh, what was his name? Treebeard?
Yes, that is a fantastic figure, and
I
I
was
want him because
mhm.
I have that shelf with Swamp Thing and the Big Man Thing, and the
Oh yeah, he would fit right
Tree
in.
Beard would fit right in there. Yeah,
See, mine would have wound up in the bottom of a bin because I only wanted it because I was trying to figure out. I was always trying to figure out some way to revamp humanoids, and I was like,
yeah. Oh,
"Oh,
yes,
here are my
that's
new
Tendril.
redwoods. I can get." Oh no! See, I would have used them as the
Oh,
redwood
yeah. You're right. There's
and bring them
I
in
forgot
and
about
maybe
those.
try and yeah, like maybe like paint them up. Uh, but that I think I only saw them once and then they were gone. I don't think they made a whole lot of them.
No, they didn't, and it was a fantastic figure though, and he was big. What's he about
Yeah,
12 or 13 inches, right?
it's a big figure. Their
Mhm.
Sauron, I remember being really well done.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
then that also came down to
Yeah, all of the
where would I
ogres and
put this?
orcs all looked good,
Mhm.
but the humans didn't look so great.
So I guess kind of more recent toy lines. I think McFarlane had made figures of was it The Witcher?
Yeah. Mhm.
And where does that sit? Because I'm also not familiar with that line. My brother-in-law loves it, but I'm not.
Yeah,
Does
it's a
that
great line
fall
of toys.
into?
The
Mhm.
TV series was fun to watch because I
Uh-huh.
wasn't familiar with the books. Like I had to go back and check
Yeah.
out the books after seeing the first season and then
Mhm.
realizing that the show I was watching was not told in a linear time.
Mhm.
So, but they did like if you're not familiar with it, you wouldn't know that it wasn't linear. And I was like, this show makes no sense. And then once I figured it out and went back and reference, I said, "Oh, well, let me rewatch it." But it's a fantastic story. Henry Cavill is, he's amazing. But and then he didn't
that
get
is our
poor Henry Cavill. Like he gets the short end
that
of
is
the stick
that was
all the time.
that was our Superman. That'll go down as the biggest travesty to befall
Yeah.
cinema in the current era, losing the
Well,
perfect
he's no longer the
Superman.
Witcher either. They recast that.
James Gunn, make Henry Cavill Superman. I know you watched the show, Mr. Gunn.
Right.
Make
Yeah,
Henry
clearly.
Cavill Superman. Call me. We'll talk details.
Right.
Um. So, what do you
But
think
those
of?
figures are great. They're great.
Uh,
Well done.
we're down to the wire, and I want to talk real quick about a toy line that I'm afraid to start collecting because I know that I will never stop. And we see it constantly, and we always admire it, and we put it down. The forgive me if I'm saying this incorrectly. The Schleich fantasy creature line.
Yeah, they're so
They,
good. That
I mean,
lava monster and all
they
the
make they make so many different types of toys. Like they've got the dinosaurs and they even their I guess more of a girl oriented line with the unicorns and the winged horses look
right.
fantastic, but their monster stuff is next level.
Those
The
medieval
elemental,
monsters with the purple crystals.
yeah, the elemental creatures. They've got, yeah, like the lava monster, the fire creature, and it defies all of my preferences for articulation.
Yep.
They're they're very like conservative with their jointing, but
Hmm.
they're extremely smart with the ones they give you. So a lot of the creatures will have the ball and socket shoulder joints, but that
Right. And the
allows for
wings.
so much. Yeah, it allows for so much range of motion, but that's all you need.
Those
That
guys would look great. All of them. That whole line would look
mhm.
fantastic with the original LJN Dungeons and Dragons figures.
I wanted them as battle beast steeds. That
Oh yeah.
that plant creature that looks like the third evolution of Violante, where it's a
Yes.
four-legged creature that's got all the vine.
Another creature that belongs on my shelf.
Oh, it's they're so good. If I'll post pictures and links in the Twitter feed during this week. People should, if they're not familiar with it, go look up some Schleich action figures.
I think
They
that's how you
are
pronounce it, but it's very German, so maybe you need to hang it like you're more anger.
Schleich.
Schleich. Yeah.
Go
Like you're
get them now.
like you're commanding a shepherd dog. Like
Go buy them now. I'm terrified. And this is from someone who went on Hasbro Pulse and just bought two more Displacer Beasts because they came back in stock, but they're still in the outlet. They're still
yeah.
on clearance. I need them, but I can't start collecting Schleich because I will not stop. And
Yeah,
I'll
and they're
buy
not
them
cheap.
all.
They're not cheap.
Yeah, they're a little
They're not
pricey.
expensive either, but they're not cheap. You know what I mean?
There's a decent range, and I've seen that, and that's the trick, because some of them have dipped down to about like $9 or $10,
Mhm.
real doable. But I know that's just going to send me off, and I'm going to want
Right, and
every single one
they're
of them.
so displayable. I don't know if that's a
Yes,
word, but it is now.
you can have one on your desk, put on one on
Yeah,
top of your computer. They're very,
yeah.
yeah, they're very great, and being different elemental style creatures. Yeah, you put them wherever, you group them wherever you get. They're fantastic. People go and get them.
Yeah. You heard it right here from Tom. You could get them at Barnes and Noble. Shameless plug.
So I guess not to leave Lego out of the conversation.
Oh, yes.
Lego's got some really
We
good.
don't talk about Lego enough. I think we need to have a
No,
Lego episode.
we absolutely need to do a full on Lego episode because they hit all the they hit everything.
Yeah.
I'm I know that they've done like the Harry Potter sets. I know there's Lord of the Rings sets. One of the funniest and kind
Well,
of
they had
favorite
like
ones.
generic like knights and castles and stuff
Yes.
back in the day, which were cool.
Mhm. Have you seen it's called the Dreams with a Z,
Right.
Dreams Pegasus.
Yes.
And I remember stumbling
Oh, we
across
didn't even
this.
talk about Clash of Titans.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I remember stumbling across that and being fascinated because it looks very much like a Zoid,
Mhm.
which is another line that I feel like could have its own full episode
Yeah.
because those things
Let's
are
do it.
awesome. It's very like robotic animal looking. So I don't know if that's the intent, but also looks really
Yeah,
great.
we should do it. The Clash of the Titans figures were awesome when they came
Yes.
out, and like we've discussed them before. I forget on which show, but everybody wanted Charon, the boat rider of the sticks, but for no reason
I,
other than he had that cool look with the skull and the robe, but
I
he
always
could actually fight.
I always wanted the Clockwork Owl, and I
Yeah,
don't know if they ever made one. Like even now, I don't know if an official one exists.
no, not that I'm aware of. But the coolest thing about the that toy line was Pegasus, the
Mhm.
flying horse. They released that figure and it had the wings
Oh
and
yeah, I didn't know they released a figure of that.
mhm,
I remember that
yeah.
someone made a
And the
statue
Kraken,
of
of
it.
course. They made the
Yeah.
Kraken, but it's
Mhm.
I don't have it. I want it. That's if we ever did the Holy Grails, that would be the one I want to find, that Kraken.
Oh, see, these are all great ideas. I'm gonna note these down into the into the list. They're
Well,
all
now we
going
don't
into
have
the
to do it.
list.
Everybody knows my Holy Grail. It's Tiamat and the Kraken. There we go.
You'll have to add some more. You
Yeah.
gotta punch that up with some more ungettable things.
Oh, I have a long list of those. They're just not all toys.
We're all there. I get it. So I'm trying-
Oh, and Crystar. We just had the new Crystar come out, and that was one of my favorite fantasy lines when I was a kid. Again, not a lot of figures.
yeah.
But they had a couple of cool dragons. The castle was a little weak.
Mhm.
Like the Eagle Island was, was not a very good place. Back when they would just give you that molded front, it was like an old Western. You just got the front, and that was it. But yeah, Crystar was one of my favorite fantasy, and they didn't have a lot of characters, which I don't
Yeah.
know. They just kind of died out, but they were all really cool figures, and the wizards had really long fingers. I don't know why.
Well, you gotta make your point. You gotta make sure you make your point.
And they were pointy. It was almost like they were like a mosquito.
They need to be able to get your attention from across the room.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. AWOC, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom,
Mhm.
are they fantasy characters, do you think?
I would think so. They've kind of got that.
Because it's a lot of it's
They're
a lot more,
anthropomorphized knights and gladiators and whatnot.
and they kind of tick the boxes of my interest, where it's I don't know how much sorcery is involved, but it's a lot of like swords, and absolutely anthros fall right into that fantasy kind of genre. There is
Right.
technology that comes into play a little bit later in the series through the
Right. They're
backstory.
very Chima like.
Yes. Oh man, Chima. Good job, Lego.
Oh
All
God,
right.
now we have to do a Lego because I just want to talk about Chima. I can talk about Chima forever.
We're at the end. Favorite fantasy line.
Favorite fantasy line.
Mhm.
There are a lot of good ones, but I gotta say it's got to be the I like the Dragon Riders of the Styx.
Mhm. I'm going to cheat because I don't know the proper category. Humanoids.
You always cheat.
Completely not where
In humanoids.
Does that even count? I'm not sure. Let us
Could have
know.
said visionaries. Visionaries would have been better.
That's true. All right. Let people weigh in. Let us know. Get a hold of us on Twitter at 2guystalkingtoys. The number 2, no G after the talking. Same thing for Gmail.
In
Fantasy it up.
humanoids.
Take care.
That's
everybody.
sci-fi. That's sci-fi.
Does it count as sci-fi?
Well, the guys were in armor. They were